This photograph looks completely normal. Just a group of miners from 1908 standing proudly outside the Blackwood Mine. For over a century, it was viewed as a simple historical artifact. But when a modern historian digitally enhanced a dark, shadowy area of the photo, they uncovered a detail that rewrote the town's history, exposing a horrifying conspiracy that the mining company went to great lengths to bury. Marcus Chen had been working as a digital archivist for 15 years. His job involved taking old photographs and documents, scanning them at high resolution, and preserving them for future generations. It was quiet work, the kind that most people would find boring. But Marcus loved uncovering forgotten pieces of history. On a Tuesday morning in March, Marcus received a box of old photographs from the local historical society. Most were typical small-town pictures from the early 1900s. Family portraits, street scenes, and business photographs. Near the bottom of the box, he found the photograph that would change everything. The picture showed 12 men standing in front of a mine entrance. They wore dirty work clothes and carried mining tools. Some smiled at the camera while others looked serious. The photo was labeled on the back in faded ink. Blackwood Mine Workers, 1908. Marcus placed the photograph on his scanner and began the digitization process. He always scanned at the highest resolution possible, which meant he could zoom in and see details that were invisible to the naked eye. As the scan completed, he opened the digital file on his computer screen. The image was much clearer now. He could see individual faces with sharp detail. The mining tools were perfectly visible. Even the texture of their work clothes came through clearly. But as Marcus examined the photograph more closely, something caught his attention. In the shadows of the mine entrance, barely visible even in the enhanced image, there was something carved into the rock wall. It wasn't a natural formation. The lines were too straight, too deliberate. It looked like some kind of symbol. Marcus zoomed in further. The symbol became clearer. It appeared to be a circle with strange markings inside it. Lines that curved and intersected in ways that didn't match any company logo or mining symbol he had ever seen. The carving looked old, much older than the mine itself. As he studied the miners' faces again, something else struck him as odd. One man in the back row was almost completely hidden in shadow. Unlike the others, this miner wasn't looking at the camera. Instead, his hand was positioned near his chest in what appeared to be a very specific gesture. Marcus looked closer at the hand gesture. The man's fingers were arranged in a particular pattern. When Marcus compared it to the carved symbol in the mine entrance, his breath caught. The hand gesture seemed to mimic the shape of the symbol. This was too strange to be a coincidence. Marcus decided to research the Blackwood Mine. He started with the official records at the county courthouse. According to the documents, the mine had been highly profitable from its opening in 1905 until it was suddenly shut down in 1912. The official reason given was geological instability that made continued operations unsafe. The records showed impressive production numbers. The mine had extracted significant amounts of coal and employed over 50 men at its peak. The company had paid good wages and seemed to have a positive relationship with the community. On paper, everything looked normal. But Marcus had learned that official records rarely told the complete story. He decided to dig deeper into unofficial sources. He visited the local library and searched through old newspaper archives from the period between 1908 and 1912. What he found was disturbing. Starting in late 1908, just months after the photograph was taken, local newspapers began reporting a series of mining accidents at Blackwood. But these weren't ordinary accidents. In each case, a miner had supposedly been killed in a cave-in or equipment failure, but the body was never recovered. The newspaper reports always used similar language. Due to the unstable nature of the affected area, recovery efforts have been deemed too dangerous. The mining company always paid substantial compensation to the families, far more than was typical for workplace accidents at the time. Marcus counted the reports. Between 1908 and 1912, 17 miners had supposedly died in these unrecoverable accidents. For a mine that employed 50 men, this was an extraordinarily high death rate. Yet the mine continued operating, and the company never faced any official investigations. He decided to search for personal accounts from families of the workers. In the basement of the library, he found a collection of donated personal papers from local families. Among them were letters and diary entries from wives and children of Blackwood miners. One diary belonged to Mary Henderson, whose husband Thomas had worked at the mine. Her entry from October 1909 was particularly unsettling. Thomas came home strange again last night. He won't talk about what happens in the deep tunnels. Says some men go down there and come back different. Others don't come back at all. The company man came by today with more money and told me not to ask questions about the men who disappeared. Another letter, written by a miner's son to his cousin in another state, mentioned something even more disturbing. Pa says there's something wrong with the mine. Some of the older workers do things down there that ain't Christian. They mark symbols on the walls and whisper in languages nobody understands. Pa wants to quit, but the pay is too good, and we need the money. Marcus now had evidence that something unusual was happening at Blackwood Mine, but he still didn't understand what the symbol meant. He contacted Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a professor of folklore and ancient symbols at the State University. When Marcus sent her a detailed image of the carved symbol, Dr. Rodriguez called him within hours. Her voice was tense when she spoke. "Where did you find this symbol, Mr. Chen? This is not something you see very often." She explained that the symbol belonged to an ancient cult that predated industrial mining by centuries. These groups believed that certain deep places in the earth contained powerful entities. According to the folklore, these entities were malevolent, but could be appeased through specific rituals and offerings. "The hand gesture you described is part of their practice," Dr. Rodriguez continued. "It was a sign of appeasement, used to show submission to whatever they believed lived in the depths." Marcus felt a chill as the pieces began fitting together. The disappearances, the unrecovered bodies, the strange behavior described by miners' families, and now this ancient cult symbol. A horrifying picture was emerging. He returned to his research with new purpose. If his suspicions were correct, the Blackwood Mining Company had encountered something in the deep tunnels. Instead of closing the mine, they had made a deal with workers who practiced this ancient cult. The missing miners weren't accident victims, they were sacrifices. Marcus spent weeks searching for more evidence. He contacted descendants of Blackwood workers, visited old family properties, and searched through estate sales for personal items from the era. His breakthrough came when he purchased a trunk from the estate of William Morrison, who had been the mine foreman from 1905 to 1912. Hidden in a secret compartment at the bottom of the trunk was a leather journal. The entries were written in a strange code that took Marcus days to decipher. When he finally cracked it, the contents confirmed his worst fears. The journal revealed that in late 1908, miners had broken through into a natural cave system deep underground. They had found ancient symbols carved into the walls, far older than anything associated with local Native American tribes. Some workers reported hearing sounds from the depths, voices that seemed to whisper in unknown languages. Instead of reporting this discovery to authorities, the mining company decided to continue operations. Several older miners, led by a man named Jakob Steinberg, claimed they understood the significance of the symbols. They convinced the foreman and the company owners that they could safely continue mining by performing certain rituals. The journal entries became increasingly disturbing as they progressed. Morrison wrote about monthly ceremonies conducted in the deepest part of the mine. He described how certain miners were selected for these rituals, men who were told they were being promoted to special positions. "Jacob says the old ones require regular offerings," Morrison wrote in one entry. "Says if we feed them properly, they'll let us take what we need from the earth. The company men don't care how we do it, as long as the coal keeps coming up and nobody asks questions." The journal detailed how they selected victims. They chose workers who were new to the area, men without strong family connections who wouldn't be missed too much. They told these men they were being assigned to special deep mining operations. The victims would descend into the lowest tunnels and never return. Morrison's handwriting became more erratic as the years passed. By 1911, his entries showed signs of mental deterioration. He wrote about disturbing dreams and strange visions. He described feeling watched whenever he entered the mine. The final entries from early 1912 were almost illegible. Morrison wrote about a ritual that had gone wrong. Instead of the usual offering of a single man, Jacob had demanded multiple sacrifices for a special ceremony. They had taken 5 miners into the depths for what Jacob called the Great Awakening. But something had gone terribly wrong. Morrison's last coherent entry read, "God help us all. We should never have listened to Jacob. The whispers have become screams. Something is moving in the deepest tunnels, something that was never meant to be disturbed. The company is closing the mine tomorrow. They're calling it geological instability, but we all know the truth. We woke something up, and now it's angry." The entry ended there, but there were several more pages of increasingly frantic scribbling that made no sense. The last page contained only the word "awakening," written over and over in what looked like blood. Marcus now understood the full context of the 1908 photograph. It wasn't a simple picture of hardworking miners. It was a snapshot of a corporate-backed cult, taken shortly after one of their successful rituals. The symbol carved in the mine entrance was their mark. The man making the hand gesture was identifying himself as a member of their group. The Blackwood Mining Company had discovered something valuable in those tunnels, but they had also found something dangerous. Instead of doing the right thing, they had chosen profit over human life. They had allowed, and even facilitated, the murder of 17 innocent men. The geological instability that officially closed the mine in 1912 was a lie. The real reason was that their cult practices had disturbed something that should have remained buried. When their rituals finally failed, and whatever they had been appeasing turned against them, they had no choice but to abandon the operation. Marcus researched what happened to the key figures after the mine closed. Jakob Steinberg disappeared completely in 1912, with no record of him anywhere after that date. Morrison was found dead in his home 3 months after the mine closure, officially ruled a suicide. The mining company executives sold their holdings and moved to other states. The families of the sacrificed miners never learned the truth about what happened to their loved ones. They lived their entire lives, believing their husbands, fathers, and sons had died in unfortunate accidents. The mining company's money had bought their silence, but it couldn't erase their pain. Today, the Blackwood Mine site is overgrown with vegetation. The entrance has been permanently sealed with concrete, and warning signs prohibit any access to the area. Local residents avoid the location, though most have forgotten why their grandparents told them to stay away. The 1908 photograph now sits in a climate-controlled archive, its dark secret finally revealed after more than a century. It serves as a chilling reminder that evil can hide in plain sight, disguised as ordinary business operations. It shows how easily powerful institutions can cover up horrible crimes when money and influence are involved. This photograph forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth about human nature. When faced with the choice between doing what's right and protecting their profits, some people will choose money every time. The Blackwood Mining Company executives knew what was happening in their mine. They knew innocent men were being murdered, but they allowed it to continue because it was profitable. The 17 men who died in those tunnels deserved better. They deserved justice, truth, and remembrance. While legal justice is no longer possible, their story can finally be told. Their names can finally be spoken. Their sacrifice can finally be acknowledged. Sometimes the past refuses to stay buried. Sometimes a simple photograph can expose decades of hidden truth. Sometimes modern technology can give voice to victims who have been silenced for over a century. What do you think about this story? Does it change how you look at old photographs? Leave a comment and let me know your thoughts. If you enjoyed this deep dive into hidden history, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more stories about the dark secrets hiding in plain sight.